We've a story to tell to the nations that shall turn their hearts to the right. A story of truth and sweetness, a story of peace and light, a story of peace and light. To the dawning and the dawning.
Get back to work. Somebody yell like that to me, I'll probably get back to work real quick. For years, we have seen the Satanic Rebellion grow. For most of history, it's been somewhat fragmented. It could be argued that the earliest blueprint of the Satanic Rebellion would be the Babylonian Talmud, which was developed in ancient Babylon. Shortly after the capture of Judah, they started forming the Babylonian Talmud in Babylon and began to have influence over the people. And it was during that time of the Babylonian invasion when Jeremiah the prophet, as a side note, was instructed to take the two kings' daughters of Zedekiah, and he took that along with the stone of Scone and went to Ireland. King Zedekiah had after he got invaded, of course, he tried to escape through the garden and he was captured in the valley of Jericho, and his sons were killed in front of his eyes, and then his eyes were gouged out, and he was taken to Babylon. It would be awful painful having your eyes gouged out. I wouldn't even want to be the person gouging out the eyes. That would be a hell of a job. But anyway, he died in Babylon. The Pharisees at the time of Christ were students of the Talmud, and they were the avowed enemies of Jesus Christ. Matthew 16:6, Jesus tells his disciples to beware of the doctrine of the Pharisees, beware of their teaching, and it was called, the Talmud was called the traditions of the elders. Whenever you see in the Bible the traditions of the elders, some people mistakenly think that's referring to God's law, but it's not referring to the Talmud. And contrary to what modern churches will tell us, because they always tell us how the Jews were like really oppressed by the Romans, but that's not true at all. The Pharisees held a very high, powerful position within the Roman government. And Bernard of Zar, who was a historian, and he wrote that book, which I've referred to several times in the past, called Anti-Semitism. He makes reference to the Roman senator Marcus Cicero. And Cicero is quite a famous Roman senator. In fact, Thomas Jefferson says some of the philosophies that would help develop the Declaration of Independence were based upon the writings of Cicero. So this was a guy of notoriety. But here's what Cicero said, recorded by Bernard of Zar. He said, "How great is the multitude of the Jews, how firm their union and their sympathy, how striking their political skill and the sway of the crowds in the assemblies." And we see that up to this very day, the political skill of the Jews to manipulate politicians really is striking, as Cicero says. And then the Roman historian Tychicus, who lived as a contemporary of the Apostle Paul and the early church, according to Bernard of Zar, he said that the Pharisees, the Jewish Pharisees, had acquired such massive power in Rome that the political parties were afraid of them and sought their support. And then Bernard of Zar also said, this is interesting, in his book Anti-Semitism, he said, "It is beyond a doubt that the Jews, through their wealth, Bernard of Zar was a Jewish historian himself, so he's not like an anti-Semite, like a neo-Nazi. He was a Jewish historian, and he was a well-known Zionist back at the turn of the last century. So he said, it is beyond a doubt that the Jews, through their wealth, their energy, and their talent, supported and furthered the progress of the European revolutions," referring to the revolutions that went through Europe during the 1848 period of time. During this period, Jewish bankers, Jewish manufacturers, Jewish poets, journalists, and orators, stiffed perhaps by quite different motives, were nevertheless all striving toward the same goal. Not the desire for wealth that spurred them on to such activity, but rather the thought that Christianity could no longer withstand the repeated shocks which were convulsing society. And they were preparing to wreak havoc on the cross of Calvary, revenge for 1,840 years of well-deserved suffering. So the hatred of these Pharisees towards Christianity has not changed up to this very day. Now, there are two main themes I like to point out in the Bible that we need to be very well aware of. The one theme is the satanic rebellion and its power. It's not just a simple thing of Satan revolted and then he was cast out of heaven, but it's a very massive satanic rebellion that we have been engaged with over the years. And the other theme of the Bible is the Abrahamic covenant. These are the two major themes, the way I see it, in the Bible. And the satanic rebellion wants to genocide our people, and it seems like it remains as the only option they have left. Now, as I pointed out before, the satanic rebellion wants to win rebellion. You don't start a rebellion unless you want to win. Every person starts a rebellion intends to win the rebellion. And Satan is no different. He intends to win this rebellion. And like I pointed out, there are three ways he can win the rebellion. One is he could kill God. Well, he tried that. It didn't work out, and Christ was resurrected. So killing God didn't help his rebellion. He failed at that. The second thing he would do is try to make Israel so wicked that God would forfeit his covenant that he made with Israel. But we're told in Scripture that God's mercy extends forever. Psalms 136 repeats over and over and over again, God's mercy endureth forever. So God's mercy for Israel has not changed. And so those are the two things that have been attempted over the years. The last thing that is to win this rebellion is to cause God to sin. And he said, well, God can't sin. Well, nevertheless, that is, Satan thinks he can make God sin. And he can make God sin by how? By either unwilling or unable to keep the covenant. So if he can genocide the white race, if the white race is genocided, then it'll show that God was unwilling or unable to keep the covenant. Because he said this covenant will last as long as the stars and moon and the universe is in existence. And suddenly if the white race come to an end, if Israel destroyed, then God didn't keep his covenant. It would make, therefore, God a sinner. And therefore, God would lose the rebellion against Satan. That's the way I see it. Now, Psalms chapter 2, we have seen this before. It says, why do the heathen rage? You all have seen that before. Why do the heathen rage? Why do the people imagine a vain thing? In other words, something that's not going to happen, but they think it will. The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel against the Lord and against his anointed. Now, how many times have our enemies taken counsel against us? Well, throughout the years and centuries, probably many, many, many times. But in recent days, we can look at the Marx, the Lenin's communist conspiracy. We look at the Frankfurt School organized in Frankfurt, Germany, in Gulf Germany, actually. And then Obama and Clinton, the Biden administrations, and Nancy Pelosi, and the national media, Black Lives Matter, they're all taking counsel against who? Against our people. They all take counsel against our people. Now, I don't have it on the screen, but right after that, verse 3, it says, let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us. Now, another translation says, let us break their chains and throw off their shackles. So these heathen are saying, let us throw off the shackles. You know, the shackles or the binds or the bands are, the way I say, are probably our attempt to protect our heritage, maybe like segregation or so forth. We put restrictions on the heathen. They're not going to trans our children. In other words, because they hate us because we say no to their program. We're not going to abide by their program. And so they say, let's cast all those restrictions off from us, and we're not going to abide by them anymore. And follow them. We're going to cast them aside. Now, Israel, or our people, rather, the Adamic people, we read in Genesis 1:26 was what? They were given the mandate to rule, called help me out, Jason. There's another name for mandate. Nevertheless, the mandate to rule, okay? And to conquer, and we have conquered. Our race has been a conquering people since the beginning of time. We've always conquered wherever we place our foot. A dominion mandate, that's what we're looking for. Dominion mandate was given to the Adamic people. So we've conquered. Wherever white people went, they conquered and ruled, and the non-whites always submitted. Their history is the history of submission, and our history is the history of conquest. And so we conquered. We brought civilization even to those we've conquered. We brought them civilization. We brought them hospitals and schools and education and so on. And unfortunately, like Oswald Spengler pointed out, we also gave them things that came back to hurt us. And, it may be that when Christ said, don't cast your pearls before pigs, because if you do, they will turn against you and tear you to pieces. Maybe that's what Spengler is pointing out, because we have taken our technology and given it to them, and they've used it against us. So, and then our major cities have all been destroyed. And by breaking the chains, really they hurt themselves, because those chains really protected them in their cities. When I was growing up, my dad was an insurance salesman. I've pointed this out before, so some of you may be tired of hearing the same story again. But my dad sold insurance, and he had what was called a debit route. And he traveled around, collected the weekly or monthly premiums from those who were clients of his insurance agency. And a large portion of his route was in a black neighborhood. And in summertime, occasionally, my dad would want to know if I wanted to ride with him for the day. And I would ride with him for the day, and we all ate out and got a cherry pie or something, and I like to do that. And my mom never said, oh, you better not go. Better not take Tom. That's you go into a black neighborhood. It's dangerous. We never asked my dad to quit because go to a black neighborhood because it's dangerous, because the black neighborhoods were not dangerous at that time. They were not dangerous neighborhoods. They were safe. And today, those same neighborhoods are not safe, but they're not only not safe for us, they're not safe for themselves. And little black girls are in danger of being raped in a darkened hallway or alley somewhere. So by casting away the cords, the binds, the shackles, as we read in Psalms, they have really brought destruction upon themselves, because it was our law and order, our discipline, our civilization that protected them against themselves. And so they destroyed every major city in the country, whether it be Detroit or Chicago or Cleveland or Chattanooga or Memphis or St. Louis or Kansas City. They destroyed Philadelphia. They've destroyed every major city in the country. They broke the bonds and chains and shackles that protected themselves. For years, we have seen this rebellion grow, and most people, it was considered kind of like most conservatives in the country, they kind of viewed it like a communism against freedom and liberty. So they looked upon it like this Marxist philosophy that has grown and captured the Democratic Party and captured many in the Republican Party. And so they look at this and say, well, this is communism. It's a political struggle. It's a political battle against liberty and freedom and so forth. But though many people understand it's more than that. It's really a spiritual battle. It's a spiritual war. The Apostle Paul says that we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. He said that we wrestle against what? Principalities and powers and spiritual wickedness in high places. So it's a very real spiritual battle we are fighting. And the revolt of the modern day Pharisees is working to destroy not only the Christian faith, but also the race that makes Christianity possible. Now, I know that's open for debate, but that's my opinion. It's not just destroying Christianity, but in order to destroy Christianity, you've got to destroy the race that makes Christianity possible. And that's our people. So this rebellion, which is against white people, was desired to bring about white genocide. And it's been occurring and progressing over the years. In that, continuing on the same passage from Psalms, in verse 4 it says, he that sitteth in the heavens will laugh. The Lord will have them in derision. Well, in other words, God is really laughing about this whole thing, and he's not catching them by surprise. But it's not just he catches them, causes them to be in derision. It cause confusion upon them. And we see this confusion in the Democratic Party today. They're fighting among themselves as to why they lost the election. And their point was a bad candidate or this, that, the other. It's really, they really lost the election because white people are getting angry and getting mad. And so they are confused, they are bewildered, and they're afraid. They're afraid. Proverbs 28, verse 1 says, the wicked flees when no man pursueth. You don't even have to be after them. They're just sitting there, those anchors are sitting in their newsrooms, and they're shuddering with fear because they think the righteousness of the mega Republicans just descend upon them and drag them off to the gulags. And they're sitting there shattered, talking about how fearful they are. They're all going to be in jail, and they're going to be hunted down and so forth. And none of those things are probably going to happen, but they live in fear because the wicked flees when no man pursueth. And we see this, of course, with the election of Donald Trump and the fear. Now, on November 5th, Mario and I are watching TV and watching the news returns, and then finally came across the screen that Donald Trump has been reelected president of the United States. And of course, that's caused concern for a lot of people. And not only did he get the electoral vote, but he won the popular vote, which they found is kind of astounding. And much to the dismay of the political pundits who told us that from the day that Trump announced he would run for president, they said it's going to be a train wreck, and his campaign was a wreck, and everything Donald Trump said was stupid, ignorant, and so forth, that Kamala Harris is going to blow him out of the water, and then, of course, it didn't happen. And so they were caught by surprise, and you know, we're saved, you might say, in the minds of a lot of people, we're saved from the evil clutches of the wicked witch from California. And everybody started celebrating when Donald Trump won. There's celebrations around the country, and people on Fox News celebrated, and the Victory Channel, and Newsmax, and on the internet, people were celebrating, all excited. Yay, we won! You know, America's saved. No more woke. No more DEI. You know, the bright sun is going to shine on America again. We won! Yay! And to the left, it was unbelievable. They couldn't believe it really happened. No one on the media would have wanted to acknowledge it, but they had to. But the election of Donald Trump, in my mind, and maybe I'm looking at it from a narrow perspective, I understand I could be accused of that. From my mind, you know, we're told that it was a shift of some of the blacks and minorities, the shift of them going to the Republican Party, that the blacks community or the Asian community or the Hispanic community, the shift towards the Republican Party is the reason they won the election. That's not the reason they won the election. It was white Christians that put Donald Trump back in power. If you had had the election only among minorities, Trump would have lost. He could not have won an election if the only voters were blacks and Mexicans and Asians and Hispanics and whatever people you may want to name. He could never win an election if they were the only ones voting. What put Donald Trump in power was angry white Christian people who are sick and tired of the direction the country goes. The white people put him back in power. But they probably aren't going to acknowledge that, and probably never will, because that will be considered racist. And so it became apparent that Trump was going to win the election, and so the liberal press, of course, they went crazy and so on, got sucker punched. And CBS, NBC, and all the other channels, they went hysterics and so forth. And then, of course, we had, the wicked flee, so no man pursues, so they had to have the cuddly bears for all the people that were having all the anxiety attack. They had little coloring books. They were looking over the shoulder, didn't know when some maggot person could just jump over through the front door and haul them off to the gulags. So they're afraid. They had a hot chocolate for them, and like I said, posters and kittens you could pet, and so make them feel comfortable and warm and safe, because they're afraid. They're afraid of righteous indignation from an angry white populace. And, well, they should be. They had counselors too. You know, they had to bring their counselors to comfort them and help them to deal with their anxiety of this Trump administration. One cruise ship has even announced that they're have 4-year cruises for people who want to totally avoid the Trump presidency. You can go on the cruise for 4 years. You can go on before he takes office, and you come back after he leaves office for 4 years. You can go on the cruise. So in case anybody's wondering about that, you can check out the prices. I'm sure it's expensive, but it might be fun, except you'd be, I don't know, you'd be kind of on a ship with a bunch of crazy people. That would be so much fun. So people are happy, they're all jubilant. You know, Christians were across the country, were dancing throughout the night. Yay, we won. We won. Donald Trump is in America. It has his back, and our long national nightmare is over with, and morning has come to America, and they were excited about that. And I understand their excitement, and though we're happy about this outcome of this election, we must fully be aware that the election of Donald Trump is not really the end of our nightmare. It would be nice if it was, but it's not the end of our nightmare. And a victory parade and a celebration is a little premature. A dark shadow still hovers over America. So we got to get back to work. The work is not over with yet. Yeah, I know Trump is going to, or says he will, and I believe he's sincere. I believe he's going to do what he can. He can secure the borders. That's great. We all want that to happen. We want our borders secured. He's going to improve our economy. I suspect that will happen. He's going to bring down inflation. Probably will do that also. Become energy independent. You know, build back our military. He's going to eliminate DEI and the woke agenda. Going to bring jobs back to America, and he's going to keep girls or boys out of girls' sports. So we're all for that. So we think we're going to win those things. Yay, we won the war, the battle. It's over with. We won. But the celebration is too early to celebrate. Don't celebrate yet. Much too early for any songs of jubilation. We got to get back to work. We're still standing on the edge of the abyss. In spite of what we hear about minorities coming over to the Republican Party, as I mentioned a few moments ago, the fact is Trump won the election because of angry white voters. Angry white voters would put Trump back in power. And as long as angry white voters are the majority bloc of the country, then our kind of people will maybe stay in power. But as soon as angry white voters become the minority, it's over and done with. The anger of millions of white people suddenly fell upon the head of these extremists, and they didn't know where it was coming from. It's kind of like that volcano in ancient Italy and destroyed Pompeii in AD 79, Vesuvius. And the problem our children are facing is the continual decline of the white electorate. Yes, we won this election, but the white people put them in power. It wasn't the minorities. And to show how weak the white voting bloc has become, they had to get some minorities on their side to vote. So there's a few blacks say, oh, yeah, I want a better job too, and I want more money in my pocket and so forth. But I noticed almost all the blacks who and the minorities that said they're going to vote for Trump, the reason was because the Democratic Party is not doing enough for them. It's still a gimme society. They still want the gimme. And so if the Republicans don't give them what they want, then they're going to flip back over to the Democratic Party. So isn't it like they're really ideological understanding the issues that we understand from our historical perspective of liberty and freedom and free enterprise and all that sort of thing. So the decline of the baby boomers is still very real. As baby boomers die off, the white electorate is going to continue to decline. And the smaller that white electorate gets, the smaller the number of angry white voters become, the election in 4 years from now may not be as pretty. It may still be enough around to snag another election. I don't know, and I don't want to be a prophet of doom, but as long as we see all these little brown kids out here on skateboards, you know, in 4 to 8 years, they're going to be in a voting booth. And how many of them are going to be voting for the ideals that we as Americans, white Christians, have embraced over the years? I don't know. Is approximately only 1/3 of white Christians in America are approximately 1/3 of white Christians in America are 65 years or older. In other words, all these old people you see at Trump rallies, they're not going to be around in 4 years or 8 years from now. Some of them will be, but and the new generation, what's coming up there? So the issue is really not political issue. It's not securing the borders. It's not the other issue we mentioned about, like to bring down inflation, or improving the economy, or stopping DEI, all those things we're all for that program of Donald Trump's. But can those programs be enacted when the angry white voter becomes a minority in this country? And that is what we're looking at possibly happening. About 10% of those under 30 are white of the potential electorate. Unless Trump is able to alter the racial demographics, shift our nation, our children are facing this darker reality. And I hate to bring bad news for young people here, but just the way we're facing. That's why you got to be tough. That's why you got to focus here on your commitment to the Lord, because it's not going to. You either got to submit or you have to stand strong. That's the option. There is no middle ground. There is no middle ground. Someday, all you young people are going to make that choice somewhere along the line. I don't know. And the stark reality that our children are simply, as the older generation dies off, and the angry white voters die off, the ones that put Trump in power, as the angry white voters die off, our children are simply going to be outnumbered, outmaneuvered, and outvoted on election time. It's just that simple. And it's just a matter of looking at the statistics and what's going on in the country and the growth of the non-white population. All our immigrants coming to this country are from non-white countries. Virtually all the top 10 countries submitting our new immigrants are all from non-white countries. So the election of Donald Trump is certainly something to be happy about, but it's not something to proclaim victory. We got a temporary victory, maybe another gasp of air, but it's only a sign that God has not turned his back on us entirely. We still are the apple of his eye, according to Scripture. And other European countries facing the same kind of issues with the massive migration of non-whites into the country. So the common denominator between the issues we have and the issue they have in Europe is race. I know race is a naughty word. It's one of the four-letter words you're not supposed to talk about, but that's a reality, because race is what is the foundation of all civilization. And but God doesn't forget his people. He doesn't forget his people. In Isaiah 49:15, so can a woman forget her sucking child, that she should not have compassion on the son of her womb? Yea, they may forget, yet I will not forget thee. That's a great promise. It's something we have to hang on to. Hang on to. We face what I project still a dark abscess, a tunnel we're going into. And God is telling us that this great bond that a mother has for a child, he said it's almost impossible for a mother to forget the attachment and that love for her baby. But he wants us to know that even if they would forget, he says his compassion, love for his people cannot be broken. He shall not forget thee. In fact, in the very next verse, and I don't have it on the screen, in the very next verse, he said he has inscribed us on the palms of his hands. And I suspect that would be at Calvary, when the palms of the hands were nailed to the cross. God made a wonderful covenant to Abraham and to Isaac and Jacob. And this was an everlasting covenant, not because some word in the Bible says everlasting, but he gave the very images of the universe, and the earth, sun and the moon, and all of the universe. As long as those things are in existence, he said his covenant is still embraced. And on Calvary, he purchased our redemption through the spilling of his blood. Nails driven through his palms and hands are an eternal witness of love for his people. So there is angry white people in this country, and we certainly need to appreciate that anger and embrace that anger. There is perhaps a white giant arising, but it's too soon to have a victory celebration, because the race is what's going to determine the outcome, not good trade deals with some European country or China or new gas prices, lower gas prices. Race is the bottom line of who we are as a people. too soon to have a victory celebration. The enemy is still powerful, and they surround us. And maybe there's a white giant awakening is possible. The white giant still has to get up on his feet and still has to take up the sword of a warrior. I want to celebrate, I really do, but however, a white covenant Israel people are still targeted for genocide. All these other issues that Donald Trump is promoting and we embrace and are happy about, the fact is our people are still being targeted for genocide. We are still facing massive non-white immigration. The churches have not only accepted interracial marriage, but the churches of America have actually promoted and encouraged it. So this one world church has kind of engulfed our whole Christian society with their embracing of white genocide. So in closing, I do want to celebrate, I really do, but there's too much work yet to be done if we are going to reach our people. There are millions and millions of white people in this country who are blinded and being led down the primrose path to white genocide because the preachers and the politicians have embraced interracial marriage and have told you that you're not a good Christian if you do nothing more just love your people. Just loving your people, they feel is an action of hate. So I want to celebrate, but it's too early to celebrate. There's too much work to do. So we got a song I like to sing. I'm not sure how many people know it. I believe, let me see.
Is it out the
It's in green hymnal. I believe I saw 223 with the page number, but let me check for sure.
What's the name of it?
Work for the Night is Coming. It's on page number 243. Let's stand, and I don't know how many people know this song. Maybe no one knows the song. But I'm going to sing it, and you're going to catch up with me, and I'm going to try to get it right. Okay? Anybody ever heard the song before? Ariel has, all right. So you can about sing it with me. Work, for the night is coming. Work through the morning hours. Work while the dew is sparkling. Work mid springing flowers. Work when the day grows brighter. Work in the glowing sun. Work, for the night is coming when man's work is done. Work, for the night is coming. Work through the sunny noon. Fill brightest hours with labor. Rest comes sure and soon. Give every flying minute something to keep in store. Work, for the night is coming when man works no more. Work, for the night is coming under the sunset skies. While their bright flames are glowing, work for daylight flies. Work till the last beam fadeth, fadeth to shine no more. Work while the night is darkling, when man's work is o'er. So, get back to work. This is that word of prayer. Our Father, we thank you for your opportunity, this opportunity for us to come and worship together. We thank you for this place that we've assembled. We pray that we'll be used as a witness. You light on a high hill to reach our brothers and sisters throughout this nation who are still lost and bewildered, who are celebrating because they think they won the battle, but the battle is still in front of us. Keep us all faithful to the